All right, we are still at this Keystone topic where we are relating, making relationships between multiple levels of organization. Uh, so there are countless examples of this you may see. For example, how does the skeletal system work together with the muscular system to make your limbs bend and cause movement? But it turns out one of the most common examples you're likely to see is called gas exchange. And this is where primarily your circulatory system and your respiratory system work together to perform a common function. So you may remember from last year that all cells need energy. And the process that produces that energy is called cellular respiration. And one of the ingredients you need for cellular respiration is oxygen. In other words, every cell in your body, your brains, your toes, your ears, every cell needs oxygen to make ATP energy. So the question here is, how does that oxygen get to all your cells? Because right now I'm breathing and you're breathing, hopefully. That air that contains the oxygen is going in through your mouth, through your nose, and down and filling up your lungs. But my lungs stop here, and so does yours. How does that oxygen get to my fingertips or my toes or my brain or my ear? My lungs are not connected to my fingers. So that's what we're going to take a look at in this notes. All right, so we have, say we have a dude here, and that is like, that's the lungs. There we go. And somehow your lungs are going to fill up with oxygen, but somehow that oxygen has to get to like his toes. That's the cells in his feet, and everywhere actually. Let me give this guy a body. Something like that. All right. So do here is breathing, and let me actually do this. All right, there we go. That's better. So do here is breathing, oxygen. Oxygen is O2, and that goes in through the nose or mouth, and that's going to connect to the lungs. All right, so no problem. We know oxygen gets into our lungs because we're breathing. Our lungs are connected to our passageways. But how does that oxygen get down here, or over here, or over here, or over here, or over here? So it's the red blood cells that do the transporting of nutrients and waste, as we'll see in a minute. So, we're going to break this down into 5 steps, 5 general steps. And so, like, all your cells have connections to the blood system, the blood vessels. And so these red blood cells are going to transport whatever you need transporting. So let's write for step number 1. Oxygen is going to go from your lungs. By the way, this is, like fish have gills. It's the same concept, gills, lungs, and sometimes these are known as alveoli too. So, let me, I'm gonna write that over here to the side, like lungs, alveoli, gills. They're all like breathing systems, I guess you can say, right? But you should be familiar with these, right? With these terms, and that's what that is. All right, so step one, we'll just use lungs in this example, but it could be, like I said, gills. The oxygen is going to go from your lungs right into the red blood cells. All right, it's going to do that through a process called passive transport, but we'll talk about transport later on. So the oxygen is in the red blood cells. And so we can abbreviate red blood cells as RBC. It's a very common abbreviation. I would say on your test, I would write the words out, red blood cells, but it's a very common abbreviation. So your red blood cells are going to take that oxygen. Your blood is connected to all throughout your body. So that red blood cell is eventually going to make its way to all its cells, and that's where that oxygen is going to get dropped off at each of these body cells. All right, so let's do step two. All right, the oxygen is going to go from the red blood cells to each of the body cells. And in our example, we're just using the toe cells, the cells on our toes. All right, well, now the oxygen is there. It's going to get used in cellular respiration to make energy. All right? But that process is also going to produce so there's your mitochondria. So that's where cellular respiration takes place. But when cellular respiration uses that oxygen, it's going to generate waste in carbon dioxide. All right, so that oxygen is used by cellular respiration, the mitochondria. And then that's going to produce carbon dioxide, which is harmful inside our bodies. If you build up carbon dioxide, that's going to change the pH level in your blood, and that could be potentially deadly. So we need to get rid of this carbon dioxide, and it's again going to be the red blood cells that transport it. So here's another red blood cell, and that carbon dioxide is just going to go right from that body cell into the red blood cell. Right. So let's say step 3, right. Cellular respiration is going to use oxygen and it's going to produce carbon dioxide as waste. Right, and we're trying to get rid of that carbon dioxide, right? And we're going to need the help of red blood cells again. So now, how does that carbon dioxide leave? Well, it's going to go from the body cells now because it's in our body cells, to the red blood cells. So the carbon dioxide is going to go from the body cells to the red blood cells. All right, the red blood cells are going to take it they're going to take it back to the lungs eventually, through the heart, and then eventually back to the lungs. And that carbon dioxide is going to get dropped off into the lungs so we can breathe it out. So through this process, which is called gas exchange, you're exchanging gases between the lungs and the blood and the body and the blood and back to the lungs. This is how our body brings in oxygen and takes it to all our cells, and takes that harmful carbon dioxide from all our body cells and gets rid of it. So finally, step 5 here. Let's go back. All right, so the carbon dioxide is now in our red blood cells. All right. It's going to move from the red blood cells to the lungs, or gills if you're a fish, or and we're going to breathe it out. So if we're going to summarize this in the 5 steps over there, that's nice and condensed. And this is one of the most common examples of how multiple levels of organization work together to perform one common